Eric, I heard you saying that capital is not everything, but let's face it. How do you move from point A to point B as an entrepreneur, in Africa in particular, without finance? So I want us to zero in on finance, and the question I want to put to you is this, that how come it's so difficult for SMEs and startups to have access to funding in Africa? And what are they doing wrong? Because you have been an investor for more than 15 years. By your bio, you've been in 15 countries. You have investments in all over Africa. And by the way, congratulations, your money is not going to Europe. It's in Africa, which is very, very good. But the question is, why is it so difficult? What are startups doing wrong? And can you educate us on what they need to do in order for them to attract finance? But before you do that, let me go back and assure our attendees that please keep your questions coming. And these fine gentlemen are going to answer your questions for you. And Eric, before you say that, let me also go and say thank you to our partners. They make it easy for us to be able to bring this thing whole to us. So I'm coming to you, and my question, I think you got a question, but start off by telling us the difference between venture capital and angel investment. Okay. And then go into why is it so difficult, and what are we getting wrong, so that we can all have access to funding, please.
Right. So I'll premise this also with a very important move that Mr. Maude to me offered me whilst I was coming here to tomorrow do a session with the Innovation Village to focus on how to raise money for your startup. And I think that it will be an opportunity where I will delve a bit more deeper into this session, but I'll give a summary as part of this. And the event tomorrow is being organized also by Human Capital International, the Village Innovation Group, and then myself. So tomorrow we'll get into that some more detail. But generally, when you start a company goes through 4 phases of funding. Okay. So when you start at an early stage, you need angel investors, right? And
they have wings?
Well, right. The history of the name angel is a very interesting history. We'll go into that tomorrow.
Sure.
But generally, you need people who, they call them angels because they're people who are almost like angelic. Because at the early stage, you just have an idea, right? You yourself, you haven't built a product. You even don't know how it's going to look like. But then somebody says, I'll give you the money to do it, right? So it's almost like it's an angelic, that's the symbolism, that's how the name came out. And so that's what you need at the first stage. And then when you build the product, so they give you money, then you go and break the product. So then you build something, right? Now you want to get customers. So you have to get a team to go out and sell. Then you go to venture capitalists. So the name, venture, so they capitalize the venture for you to get revenue. Then once the business is grown enough and become big, you go to private equity. Private equity guys are the big shops that give you big money, and they normally take control of the business. They buy a significant position in the company, and they now basically take the company that is making, let's say, $100 million, and they want to make it into $1 billion. Right? Generally, that's what private equity are thinking. Then they will then take that market and take it to capital markets. They will take that business, and take it to the capital markets. Sure. And so that's how they offload the company and they make money. Then it becomes a public company. Right. And then who is in the public market? Family and friends, everybody can buy shares of the company. I think MTN just listed here on the public market. So
it's about to.
It's about to. I think they did Rwanda. It was Rwanda that they just listed. So they're about to list here as well, right? So they started with small capital, and then they've grown. Now they've become so big. They've got private, and now they're going to go to the capital market so everybody can buy a part of it. So you should aim to buy some. You can buy with as little capital. You can become a part owner in a big company without having big money. And that's what the capital markets does, right? So everybody who wants to invest, you should have some shares, buy some shares. I buy a lot of shares. I have shares in MTN, the group level, and Ghana level, and I buy it through the capital market. The capital markets allows you to take your small money, but be able to buy a piece of a big company, right? So that are generally the 4 levels. Now, to the question about why African startups and SMEs are not raising as much capital. Sure. And to premise that, I was going to say that capital is a fuel, you need it. But it's not the only ingredient. It's not the panacea to all the problems. And that's an important context to have. And so the thing is that, startups need different kind of capital from SMEs. Now, when you're a startup, what you really need is you need angels. You need somebody who believes in the idea that you have, somebody who can trust that you'll be able to make something of it. And normally, you don't make the same thing you thought about. You know, you think about a product, but by the time you end up creating the product, it's not always what you think. And so there's a trust factor that needs to be in place. And so what happens is that the angel investors, they are in three categories. We call them family, friends, and fools. And the reason they call them family is that, you know, family, you have a relationship with the family. So there's trust. So normally, the first people that give you money, they have some level of relationship with you. It's a family, your uncle, your dad, your cousin, your nephew, your niece. Your friends, you went to school with them. They know you, so they're like, this Eric guy is being of no good, but finally come up with an idea. Okay, well, let's back him up. You know, we need him from school. Finally, he come up with an idea, right? There's a relationship. There's a trust factor. Now, the third group is called fools because normally there are people that don't necessarily are not family and friends. So you meet somebody who just, like me, when I started, right? I believed in people that I never had a relationship with. But somehow I thought that this person had a great idea. I spent some time, got to know the person, and I kind of felt, okay, this thing could come to something, right? So you are categorized as a fool because you are actually on the fool's era because that could fail. And a lot of startups I invested in have failed, but also luckily a lot have succeeded for me to stick around long enough. So at an early stage, when you invest, the premise is that about 70% of the investments will fail. Actually, in some cases, 90%. Then one will succeed and write off all the ones that have failed, right? So if you took $10,000, which is really how I started, and I put 10,000 in 10 companies, because I put in 10,000 and I put in very early, you know, I get a bit of a higher stake in the business because I went in early, right? Now, the 9 will fail. But the one that succeeded, let's say I started with 5%. By the time the company gets to private equity, maybe I now have 2%. But I have 2% of a $100 million company. Sure. So my $10,000 that I invested is now what? Right? So when that company is sold, I now make what? $100,000. So I've actually made 10x on the 10,000 that I had, which I started investing with. So that's sort of the rough equation around early stage investing. Right. So it's very risky. You will lose a lot. But you want to get one that then pays for everything. Right? Now, in the African context, the angel investing has been happening. A lot of family businesses have, it happens informally. I mean, most business that we have in Africa is family funded. I mean, most of businesses that are big to MTN started that same way. A lot of the big businesses, right? And happen everywhere in the world, right? Now, the friends part and the fools part is where it's not well developed, right? Because in some instances, maybe you don't have that kind of family friend that have those capital muscle for the business you're going into. So your friends like you, but, you know, hey, you're trying to start a farm. You need at least $100,000 to buy equipment. Like, hey, Francis, no, we like you, but me, I don't have $100,000. So maybe I can give you $1,000, right? But when it comes to technology, this is where some level of equalizer is, because in software, you don't need a huge capital outlay, right? You technically just need the ability to connect to the internet, your ability to write a software and to sell it. So one of the advantages that we've had in tech space is that the capital requirement to start a business have come down significantly, as opposed to other sectors where you need some level of capital to buy certain things to get off the ground. And then when it comes to the service side and also other sectors, the capital requirements are relatively low. But again, a lot of businesses don't get funded. Part of the reason is that if we take the tech space, for example, probably I'm one of the first generation tech entrepreneurs, right? Maybe I'm second generation, you know, but literally a lot of people have not been in the space and made enough money to reinvest, right? Because that's how the equation works. It's a generation that makes money, build company, they succeed, and then they take that money and then they reinvest because you know the space, right? And that's how I got into it, because I realized that I was lucky to be successful as an entrepreneur, and I kind of figured it was important for me to then pass it on. Because when I was an entrepreneur, people invested in me, people believed in me, and people gave me a chance, right? So I see it as, you know, I got it. I never planned to be I always said I'm an incidental investor. Like when I was in school, I never thought that I'll be doing investing today. You know, 15 years ago when I came to Uganda, it never crossed my mind that I'll come here today and talk about investment, right? But when I succeeded, I realized that probably I was a pioneer, and it's important for me to be a stepping stone for the next generation. So hopefully more and more people succeed in my space, and then they begin to become the fools, right? And the more fools you get, the more companies that will get funding. So in manner of speaking, the reality is that if you're an entrepreneur today and you're struggling to get funding, part of it is just that there's not a lot of people who have succeeded in your area that know what you're doing and can provide you the capital. It's just the facts on the ground, right? And so things that like this that you are doing, like what we're going to do tomorrow, and innovation hubs are creating that impact, like what Francis is doing. Francis is a successful professional. He's now said, okay, I know farming, so I'm going to take some of my money and put it into farming, right? So you have seeded now 40 people in the village. Yep. You are building a whole entrepreneurial ecosystem. Can you imagine? Those guys can now feed their families better. Like you said, you get them out of poverty, but you're not giving them that money. You know, if you are giving them hangout, they'll be coming to you every day. But now you have said, no, instead of me sending money to the village, and this is the way that we also as professionals start thinking. Instead of just handing out money and giving to people, create an entrepreneurial venture and let them go and hustle, because they can hustle. And if they hustle, they become independent of you, so they don't need the money. Teach them how to fish instead of giving them the fish. Exactly. You know, and this is one way that we can improve the lot of our local people. Like you said, it's not a lot of capital, but what you do is that you are creating new wealth. Because all these entrepreneurs that you're enabling in the fishing sector, you see very soon they'll introduce some technology. Then they're creating efficiency. Fishing will be better. Now you've managed to actually do the biggest leap, which is you've actually changed people's perception of fish from the sea, and you're saying now people can consume fish from the pond. Yeah. That's a huge mindset change. That opens up a new market that was not there before. Exactly. So you're creating a whole revolution in how people look at fish that they consume. That it doesn't always have to come from the river, from the sea, and because there's no sea, then I can't do fish farming. That's true. Right? That's true. So what you're doing is a huge movement. You know, and you are basically evidencing it by now, and your model is you are giving these micro entrepreneurs an opportunity, so they don't depend on you. So they know that, hey, if my pond, I make sure that I can get a lot of fish, I'll get 30%. So you're sharing the risks with them. So now, if they take that risk and they succeed, they make more money, right? And which is a very powerful concept, because the early stage venture is all about risk taking. Yeah. And so if somebody is able to take risk, they must also participate in the reward. And that's the mindset which we must begin to encourage entrepreneurs. That's why we try to tell entrepreneurs, in this entrepreneurship game, there's no free stuff. If you want free stuff, don't get into entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship, to answer your last question, the real capital that you need in entrepreneurship is the customer's capital. Francis said it succinctly. Yep. Your best investor is not Eric. Yep. I'm sorry that today everyone will say, well, this Eric, what are you useful for? Right? Your best investor is your customer. Your customer is your best investor in your business. If you focus on your customer and you keep delivering value to them, they will buy your service, they will buy your product, and that is the primary capital you need. So where do you need an investor? You need an investor when you want to go into a new market. Like I said, when you started, you didn't have capital. So you go to the angel investors. They give you a little money, you start. Immediately you've now started that business. Stop focusing on the investor. Now focus on the real guy, the customer. He will give you revenue, cash flow. You keep the business. Now, you become a market leader in Kampala. Yeah. You want to expand into Munyonyo, or you want to expand into Kenya. Yeah. That's when you come to me, the venture capital, say, okay, Eric, I have this business. Francis gave me, and Emmanuel gave me 10,000. Now I'm making $100,000 in revenue. I'm a market leader in Kenya. Now in Uganda, I want to go to Kenya. That's what my capital is for. Right? So you now want to take that model to a new market. Or you say, now our business we have 100,000 customers. We make $150,000 every year. But if we're able to bring in some more capital, hire some more people, create this system, we can now generate more revenue. So I need that capital to grow it. So you see where the capital need is. You need a capital to up your game. Yeah. So that's when you go to an investor. But don't create a business and think, I'll just go to Eric and give him money. We've taken this donor mindset into investing, which is a mindset that we need to stop. Right. An investor is someone who just gives you money all the time. No. You need to make a return. So if I give you the first set of money and you're not making, the business not working, I'll not keep putting money into it. It will not happen. Right. And unfortunately, this is where a lot of entrepreneurs miss it. And then an investor is just supposed to give you money, and then you then go and do the business. If the business doesn't even succeed, you still get the money, which is sort of where the Silicon Valley model, creates actually a very difficult problem for local investors. So, and I'll explain this a little bit. Tomorrow I'll go into some detail when we go to that workshop. But, in Silicon Valley, you have this model of blaze scaling, where you are basically acquiring customers at all costs. And the investors there don't care about unit economics. So they say, so long as you're getting customers, if you are not profitable, we still give you the money, right? But what that does is that you, the entrepreneur, lose the leverage to the investor. Because by them giving you money and you not paying attention on unit economics, they become majority owners of your business. So technically, you work for them. And this is unfortunately the mindset that a lot of African entrepreneurs are buying into. But the reality is that business is about creating unit economics and being profitable. So we at Chanzo Capital, our ethos is that we want to get companies to be profitable. Because when you are profitable, you are independent, you are sustainable. It's when you want to make a big leap, then we give you more capital. And that's really how businesses are supposed to be. If you look at businesses that have been around for 100 years, businesses that are multinationals, that's how they are run. They are profitable businesses that are able to cover their overheads and make profit for their shareholders. That is business.
Interesting. I mean, Francis, this takes us into a different ballgame altogether.
Yes,
because the perception has been that the reason why many startups and SMEs are not doing well is because they don't have access to funding. And the guy who is saying he doesn't have money is driving a very big car on the street, wearing the most expensive, brands and the rest. Before you say the business doesn't have capital. So, but Francis,
he's not reinvesting into the business.
Into the business, yeah.
Welcome aboard the safest airline in Africa. With industry-leading safety measures to protect your well-being. The first in Africa to earn a diamond standard of safety. Offering a more contactless, safe, and seamless experience. Delivered with a smile by Africa's first fully vaccinated crew. Creating special memories that bring the joy back to flying, so you can continue making memories with your loved ones. Book your flight with Rwandair today. Rwandair, the safest airline in Africa.
Rwandair, fly the dream of Africa.
So we pick travelers, our typical customers are people flying in and out of the country. So we pick those from the airport to wherever they're going and back. And we do this through a network of driver partners for whom we give regular business and improve livelihoods. They can book through WhatsApp, they can call us, they can email us. We just try to make it as simple and convenient, as seamless as possible for our customers.
The Digital SMEs and Career Mentorship Program. The world economy has undergone a massive digital transformation and created a need for startups to adapt to these technologies. We intend to help save women and youth-focused businesses with the skills required to stay relevant. Join the movement today. Register today. HCI, working together to change the startups and SMEs narratives of Africa.